The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Faz Kareem with Learn It, and today we're going to be covering SharePoint Online Advanced. There is a beginner course before this that I highly recommend to take a look at if you're new to SharePoint. But today we're going to be covering the Advanced session, which is a different set of topics that build upon our beginner session. Let's see what we're going to be covering today in SharePoint Online Advanced. Now in our beginner course, we got accustomed to building sites, understanding what a team site was, what a communication site was, and ultimately working with our documents in the library that comes with the site. I want to do a little bit deeper with the document library, and I want to show you ways that you can sort columns within the document library, filter if need be, and even search to help locate documents. We'll also talk about how you can customize the document library to build special views that have filtered items, to build special sorts that sort the data in a certain way. And these views can be available publicly or privately for your own personal use. Once we cover these two topics, focusing on the document library, I want to start shifting gears to working with the list. Microsoft has the Microsoft List app available for us, which integrates into SharePoint. Microsoft List app allows us to track data directly in the site. Once the list is set up, you can add records to the list. And we'll talk about creating the list, adding records to the list, maybe even exporting the list, and a couple of basic settings around the list. Once we get a hang of it, we've covered document libraries and lists. We're going to start accessing another component of SharePoint, which are the pages. All of these apps that we're adding, document libraries, lists, they're going to be scattered across the site. And we have to make sure that we have a page to show this content. The pages are customizable. You have different sections that you can add, different background colors, title pages. And it's a pretty flexible environment. And I want to make sure as a SharePoint site owner, you feel comfortable working with those pages. Because you're going to build all of this beautiful content, whether it's a list or a library that holds your files. And you want to make sure that the users of the site have access to it. So a convenient way to do that is adding these pages, customizing the page to make it user-friendly. And the best way to customize a page is by using something called a web part. If you have a list or a document library or a news feed or web links that you want to display, the best way to do that on the page is by using your SharePoint web parts. Web parts will allow you to pick a custom view for your list or document library, special formatting, and you can display it across the various pages that you have access to. And that's going to cover the major components of SharePoint. In the beginner course, we go over building a site itself and the document library. And then now in this course, we're going to be covering lists, pages, and web parts, the other components to SharePoint. Once we cover these components, I want to spend some time talking about how we can add members to the site or add owners to the site. Because typically once the site gets built out, that's when you start introducing members to the site. And we start making it a live site where we actively work on. And typically those sites have more than one owner. Typically those sites have multiple members. And we'll talk about how we can add those once the site is created. So let's get started here with SharePoint Online Advanced.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at learnitanytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
All right, I opened up the SharePoint site that we were working on in the SharePoint beginner sessions. I think what would be best is, before I dive into it, I'm going to go over to this gear icon we mentioned in the beginner lessons. And what I want to do is, under the site information here, I'm just going to update the name. Let's call it SharePoint Online. Advanced. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. It should update the name on this page in a moment here. And I'll continue using this site for the advanced session. Now we left off working with the documents here. Let me go over to the document library over there and give it a click. And in our beginner session, I ended up adding about 3 or 4 files, even turning on content approval and requiring checking in and checking out for the document library. Now, when you're working with the document library, we've discovered that there's a couple of built-in views that you have access to. And if I click on all documents here, I can see the views. The built-in views that I have access to are things like the list, a compact list, and even tiles. And because I have content approval turned on for this document library, the approve and reject items view, as well as the my submissions view, become available for me. Now you have the ability to actually create new views for your document libraries. You can group the data a different way, you can sort the data a different way, or even have it filtered. If you notice here on this drop-down under all documents, I see an option to create a new view. And from there, I can make the changes to the view that I create. If I need to customize anything, I can do that. And I have a choice on whether or not I want to make it a public view, where all the members of the site get to use it, or even a private view, where it's just for my own personal use. Let me create the view here. And the view that I'm going to create, I'll call it my custom view. And I'll put my initials near it, Baz Kareem. Now, when you're making this view, it gives you a choice of whether or not you want it to be private for the other members or public, available for all. It's important to note that if you decide to make this a private view, you won't be able to change it to a public view. You'd have to recreate the view altogether. So I'm going to make this a public view. And when I hit create here, it's going to take me over to the page where I can start editing. Once I go down to the drop down and choose to edit the view. So here's a new view that I just created. Custom view FK. It's a duplicate of my original view, all documents. But I have the opportunity to edit the current view that I'm in and save the changes to it. And here I get to do things like delete the current view. Now, if you're noticing you're trying to delete a view and it doesn't allow you to, it's because that view is the default. And if you assign a view a default, it's no longer going to let you delete it until you go back and assign a different view as the default. So if you're wondering why you don't have a delete option, it might be because you're looking at the default view. Yeah. I'm not going to change the name here, but I can add additional columns of information. And here, this little drop down, it's expandable and collapsible. I can select or clear the checkboxes next to each column to show or hide the specific columns in the view I want to create. And I can even change the ordering of the views. If I want a specific column to show up first, I can choose the positioning from the left and assign it to a smaller number compared to the ones on the right. So if you are turning on version history and you want to turn on the check-in comments, that's something useful for the team. Or if you're requiring version history or requiring checking in and checking out, add a column that shows who the files are checked out to. Various different columns that we can add that are built in here. Who created it, a description column, the file size columns, even a version column. Now, once you decide on the columns that you want to keep, you can go ahead and expand or collapse this area because you're done with it for the view. The next option that you have for your view that you want to create is deciding on whether or not you want to sort. And here it says I can select up to 2 columns to determine the order in which the items in the view are displayed. And there's a hyperlink to learn more about sorting items from there. So by default, the view doesn't have any sort going on. It's not sorted by any columns. But I can. There's different settings that I can sort it by. I'll go ahead and do it based off the name. You can do multiple level sorting, but I'll just do it in name in ascending order. And of course, you can collapse this little sort once you're done filling it out. And here I can create a filter for my custom view. Show all of the items in this view, or I can display a subset of the items using filters. Now here's the cool thing I want to read to everybody. To filter a column based off the current date or the current user of the site, you can type in brackets today or brackets me as the column value. And what we can do is then we can filter the lists based off files that were added maybe just today or modified today, or files that were only added by me or created by me or modified by me. Right now, this view is showing all items in the view. I can choose to show a specific one. I'm going to do if it's created by is equal to. And I'll put me. So it's going to be for any user here that signs in. They're going to see all the documents that they have added to the library. And I can, of course, I can go ahead and collapse this filter when I'm done. So, custom views allow you to build columns and add additional columns. You can sort the data in the columns, even filter the data in the columns. And I also have the ability to choose if I want tabular view, where I can show individual checkboxes for each row, which I currently have on. If I go over to the group by, I can group the columns or the data based off a specific column. I'm going to group the data based off maybe who it was created by. And there will be a top label grouping all the files with a username. So whatever the usernames are in the organization. I'm going to collapse the group by area. I can choose if I want totals to be displayed for the approval status, the check-in comment, the checkout comment, and various other columns that are available. It might make sense to add an account to see how many comments are available, how many times a file has been checked out. I can also choose different styles for the list, and we can browse through the various styles to see how they look, but I'm using the default style at the current moment, which is the default when you create a view. Now, something that might be useful for us is the fact that a folder can be hidden or shown in a view. Now, this doesn't hide the items inside of the folder. It will show you all of the documents with no folders. It's very interesting. A folder is metadata in SharePoint. So if you were to not show the folders, it's just going to show all the files, a flat view, which can be extremely helpful for some document libraries that are much more broad with the files and the folder structure that they've created. I can use an item limit to limit the amount of data that is returned in a view. So right now, the default is 30. And then, of course, I have the ability to adjust my mobile settings. How do I want it to show up in a mobile view? Now, it's very important that once you change all of these settings and you're happy with the settings you've changed, that you make sure to hit OK instead of backing out of the page or closing out the page before committing the changes. I'm going to hit OK here. And this is a custom view that I created that has the data grouped by the users that created the files. Looks like it was just me. I've added in the created by column. I've added in the check-in comment and the checkout to column. So if I were to check out a file, it'd display the name of who it checked out to. I can see the filter for just files that I have added are available here. So this custom view now is available for all users. Whenever they go to the document library, it's going to default to all documents. All documents at the current moment, if I hit Edit Current View, this is the one that's assigned as the default. This view appears by default when visitors follow a link to the document library. If you want to delete this view, first make another view the default. Notice how there's no delete option up here. Let me hit OK. So if I go back over to the custom view FK, I can go over and make this view. If I hit Edit Current View, I can make this the default view. And when I hit OK there, next time I go to it, it's no longer going to have the delete option. So all users will go and see this view as the very first view. And now when I go over to Edit Current View again, notice how the option to delete this view is no longer available. So it's very important to know that the default view can't be deleted. I'm going to go back to all documents, and I'm going to assign this as the current view as the default view. That way I can have the ability to delete custom view FK if I need to. As you can see, there's been a lot of clicks in this drop down here when creating custom views. Before moving on to a SharePoint list, I think it's best if you spend some time seeing if you can create a view. Once that view gets created, edit the view. And see if you can set the view as the default. And come right back. We'll be talking about SharePoint lists coming up next. Now, the document library that we've been working in, this allows me to upload and add files. There's another component of SharePoint called a list. And I can add a list to the site to display content that isn't a file, but that lives on the site. So text-based content that you would maybe type into an input that gets stored on the site. Records, we'll call them. If I go over to this gear icon for the site itself, I have access to the site contents here as the owner. And I'll be able to add the SharePoint list from here. I'm going to go over to site contents to take a look at what I currently have in the site. Now, with the site, I can see there's already some built-in stuff like the document libraries included, an area for form templates, site assets. If I ever upload a photo or something, all the assets to the site get stored here. The style library, the Power BI app, and then the site pages that we'll work with later. I have the option to add in new apps. I can create a new document library with different views, different files, different permissions, different settings. But I can also create a list, which I don't have a single list currently in the site. I can build a list for my contacts, displaying an image, a contact name, their department, their phone number, their extension, who they report to. I can build a calendar as a list, putting all my holidays, all my events, my training events that are coming up potentially for an organization. Ultimately, a list is simply columns where you would create and add data to. But depending on what you're creating the list for, you have different views. Like if I want to show a Meet the Teams page as contacts, it might be best to use a gallery. If I want to show a calendar, it might be best to build a view that displays your content as a calendar in the list, which simply needs a column that holds dates for that to be possible. I'm going to build a list for, let's do a Meet the Teams page. That'd be cool. Now, when you're working with Microsoft Lists, this is actually a standalone app that Microsoft has to offer. It integrates very smoothly into SharePoint. Now, I have the ability to use this app, and I can create a blank list where I choose the columns, I input the records, change all the settings myself. If I've already been using the List app, just not in SharePoint, I can use the list that I've already created. A lot of times when you're starting up with lists, you also have the opportunity to use Excel files, which some of the data like contacts, events, they're already in Excel. Now just be sure that if you are using an Excel file, that it has to be formatted as a table. And of course, if you have a comma-separated values file, a CSV, those are also available for you. Microsoft has also done a pretty good job at adding list templates. These list templates simply have columns pre-created for you, like a template that helps you track issues, a template that will help you with employee onboarding or event and itineraries, asset managers, travel requests, work progress trackers, content schedulers. Now, if you're unsure about how these lists would look, you can actually click on the templates to see a preview of them. Now, the template will show you the list with pre-populated data. That pre-populated data won't be there once the list is created when you choose to use the template. So this list has features to track issues and bring them to closure in this list. It comes with pre-populated and design choice pills for priority and the status columns. It's grouped the views by priority, status, and the person the issue is assigned to. This makes the list easy to parse through issue data efficiently. So it's designed with those things already built in, as opposed to doing it from scratch. And there's various other templates that you can pick from. Let's see this expense tracker one. Record all your expenses in one place. Pre-populated design choice pills for the category column. So it comes with the date, the amount, and this pre-populated category column. Of course, you can edit these if you're not happy with the labelings and the categories that were created. Add additional columns if you need to. Oh, they have an image column for the receipt as well. How cool is that? So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick a blank list. And I get to add a list name. I'm going to call this one Contacts. And in the description here, a list of our contacts. This will be formatted as a gallery to display our contacts nicely. And I'm going to make sure that this contacts list is going to show up in our site navigation. So without me needing to add it at the end and hit edit, I'm just going to leave this check marked on. Let me create it. All right, I can see I have the contacts list newly created there. Now this list is a blank list, so let me customize it a little bit, like the title column. I'm going to go over to the column settings for it, and let me just rename this one here. I'll call this one full name. I get to add additional columns. Let me add another one here, and then I get choices for what type of column I want to create. So I have the full name there. Let's maybe do job role for the next one. I'll do text. And I'll do job role. Enter user's job title. Here. And I'll leave it as a single line of text. I can leave a default value if it's left blank. I can even require that this is a column that needs to be filled out for every record. I'm going to save this column as job role. I'll add in another column here. And this next column, I'm going to do departments. And let's say we want to make sure that users spell our departments correctly or have our organization department names nicely lined up there. We have this ability to create choice columns. We can offer a set of choices they can pick from. I'm thinking of like data validation from Excel. I'll put department. Choose from the pills to select a department the contact is located in. And I'll leave it as a choice. That's our type. This is what gives me the option to create the columns choices. Choice number 1, I'll put IT. I'll add in another one, HR. I'll put sales. I'll put marketing. And of course, I'll leave it at these ones here. But if I needed to add additional choices, I can do that. I can also add in different colors. And I can leave the choice of adding in manual values as well, which I'm not going to do. I want this to be consistent with the departments that we have aligned here. I'm going to hit save for this column. And I'm going to add another column here. I'm going to go over to this date and time column. Notice how there's no option for just a date column. Once you choose the date and time column, you can just choose to not include the time. So notice how it says include time, no. So I'll call this one date of hire. And I'll hit save. I'm going to add in another column here, just creating my list. And I'm going to build a yes/no column. And I'm going to do full-time or part-time. And I can choose yes/no as the type. For the default value, I can choose a default value to assign. I'll put yes, since the majority of us are full-time here, and hit save. And I'll add in another column here. At the very bottom, we should have a choice for images here, where I could input an image for the item as well. So, I have actually created a list. These are not document libraries like we were working with previously. We have a full-on list where we can add records to. Now, the list has various columns, like the full name column that I've added, the job role column, the department column, the date of hire column, full-time, part-time, headshot, and if I need additional columns, I can do that. I don't have any records in the list yet. I can add them by going to this form and filling it out or editing in the grid view. If I need to, I can export the list into Excel or to a CSV file or to Power BI. I can also sit here and filter the list using the little funnel icon. Once the records are added, it'd make more sense to filter. Since there's nothing there, I can't really filter for much. And I have various different views that we went through in our previous lesson for our document libraries. We'll be building a gallery view as well as a contacts, maybe calendar view as well, to see how we can kind of adjust those views. So I think it's best if you are following along and you have the ability to create lists from the site contents, I think it'd be best if you were to build a list for yourself. I can see mine's there, the contacts list. And this list is going to be used across the site when we add it to pages and create web parts that display the content. But for right now, I think it's best if you pause the video and see if you can build the contacts list. Feel free to add additional columns or exclude columns that you don't find fitting for your contacts. But once you've created it, come back and we'll talk about adding records to our list. So I have this list created, and it's about time where I get to start adding records. The records are the content that goes in the list, filling out the columns. Let me add myself here as an item. And notice how this view allows me to fill out a form with the columns of information I've created. So I'll put my name in here, Faz Kareem. I'll put desktop instructor. I'll put my department as IT. A date of hire, when was that? I'm just going to pick a date. 2/02/1995. That's what we're going to put there. I'll leave as a full-time. And I'm going to select an image for my computer here. Let's see if I should have one available. And I'll hit save. I can also add in records a different way. Now I'm going to add in the record twice. I'm going to hit edit in grid view. Notice how this option to add a new item shows up in grid view. And notice how it becomes very tabular now, where I have these cells that I can edit things with. So the grid view is just quick for mass uploads. So if I needed to add in some multiple contacts, I can do that very easily here. I'll add in Joe Patty, who's also a desktop instructor. And Joe Patty's also in IT. So notice how I'm just typing this and selecting it. For the date of hire, I'll go ahead and pick a date. And full-time employee, check mark yes. And here I get to add in images as well. I don't have an image for Joseph. I'll go ahead and use the Learn It logo for this one here. And when I exit in grid view, it added yet another record. Oh, looks like I didn't put the name in there. Let me edit that one more time. Joe Patty. Now, I'm going to exit the grid view. And the cool thing is this content lives on the site. You can sort, filter, create views with it, which we're going to do in a second. But I can also generate Excel sheets as well as CSV files directly from here with the information in the list. So if any higher-ups are requesting this information, you can always get the most up-to-date version and export it fairly quickly. Ultimately making it like one source of truth for everything. Now, the contacts have different views. I have a list view. I have the compact list view, makes it smaller. I have the auto fit height. And then I have this ability to create new views, format views. Now, I'm going to add in a new view here. I don't like getting the views that I have currently. I don't want to mess around with the originals. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new view. And for this view, I'm going to call it the gallery. FK. And I'm going to select to change this view from a list to a gallery. And I'm going to make this a public view and create. This is the gallery view here. The gallery view is going to display the contacts as a gallery. Great when you have an image available. I can also choose to edit the current view that I'm in. So my gallery view can be made the default view for the list. I can choose what columns are going to be shown versus which ones aren't going to be shown. Let me hit OK here. Now, I also have the ability. Oh, 1 second. Let me refresh this page. There we go. All items, gallery FK. I'm going to add in another view to display the calendar. Now, for the calendar view, I'm going to create a new list. I'm going to build maybe holiday calendar. And when I go back over to the site contents here, there's my list with 2 records. I'm going to add in a new one for my calendar. I'll make it a blank list, and I'll call it calendar. And I will create it. And I'll keep it very short for the column creation process. I'm just going to call this one event name for the title. And for this next one here, I'm going to put a date, the start date. And I'll add in 1 extra column for the end date. And I'll add in 1 record. I'll call it a company holiday. And I'll put the start date for 26th. Oh, didn't mean to click that there, and I'll hit save. Now this view would be great to be displayed as a calendar. So I'm going to add in a view for my calendar this time. I'll call it calendar FK. I'm going to display the calendar as a month. And I'm going to choose the start date as the calendar for the start date column and the end date of the calendar as the end date column and hit create. And here I can see my company holiday there. Now this calendar view is not the default, but I can always hit edit current view. And this will allow me to change any of the settings that I need, like changing it to week, to work week, to day, displaying what subheading you want available. I'll hit save. I'm going to assign this view, the day view, as the current view, and that will mark it as the default view for the list. So, we have added records to both lists, and we've applied a special view to both lists. This one's a calendar view, and this one's a gallery view, nicely displaying the content for the end users on the site. Pause the video and see if you can create a calendar with the new list. Go ahead and add a date column. I've added a start date and an end date. And see if you can edit the views to create a calendar like we have on the screen here. When we come back, we'll start learning about SharePoint Pages and how we can customize various pages to hold content across the page. I am going to head over to the home page of my site. And when I'm looking at the home page, I can see that the URL is going to say the site name that it was originally called, but then it says collabhome.aspx. This page is an ASPX file. You can access this page and customize it from the site contents. If I go over to this document library called Site Pages, I'm going to click on this here. I can see that the collaboration home ASPX file is available. When I click on this, this is going to take me back to that home page. Now, the home page is the first page that you get taken to on a SharePoint site. It typically has the site navigation with all your useful links. And it has these various web parts. Now, keep in mind, in the beginner course, when we were creating the site, we kept learning about different templates that we can pick from. And we picked the very first template, the Collab Home template. So if I go over to Apply a Site Template, these are different pages that you can add to the page library. I'll add in employee onboarding, or I'll do event planning. This adds a home page, 2 additional pages, 1 list, 2 page templates. I can also add in a different one like crisis communication teams. This adds in 1 home page, 1 additional page, and 1 page template, and 2 lists. So you're more than welcome if you find some of these pages, templates, these site templates fitting for your need. It will save a lot of the work for you. That way you don't have to reinvent the page, build out the sections and the formatting and the color schemes. All that will be nicely done for you. You just got to choose what content goes where on the page. Now, if you don't want to pick from the templates, or if you want to just start from a blank page, so that way you can have your own creative process flow, you can add blank pages to the page library as well. I'm going to go over to my site contents again. Now, with our site contents, I have access to a view that shows me everything that's available on the site. And I'm going to head over to the page library this time, where I can see site pages. I'm going to create a new page. Wiki pages are a little outdated. They still exist because there's a lot of legacy sites that organizations still use that still require the concept for the site to work. But I wouldn't really recommend using a wiki page in this day and age. Also with the web part page, those are fairly old at this point. It was the next evolution to a wiki page. They're still available so that legacy sites in SharePoint can perform correctly and operate correctly, the ones that were already existing, so they don't break. The most modern site page that we can use are called site pages. They have the most contextual features, making it easy for us to build the page. And these ones work with the most modern SharePoint Online sites that we have to offer in this day and age. I'm going to go over to the site pages here, and I'm going to pick from the page that I can create. Awesome. So here is a page. It automatically saves as you type. I'm going to call this one custom page, and I'll put FK. Here, I'll hit save as draft just for a second here. This is how the page looks when you're out of editing mode. And let me go back over to site contents to show everyone something here. Now there's a third item in there. The custom page FK. At the current moment, it's not even published yet. When I go back to it, I can continue editing it. So I'm going to go back to the edit option here. Now, the very top of the page is a title. And there's different formats for the title that you can pick from. The layouts. You can pick image and title, but you can also go over to plain. From plain, you can change it to a color block. And you can format the color block as well. As opposed to a color block, you can also use overlap. I'm going to use a plain one. That way I don't have to worry about adding an image. I can always edit this if I need to. I can also choose whether or not I want comments to be available on the page. So if I save this here, there will be a comment section where users can actually publish a comment about the page and we can all read the comments. Think about like a YouTube video. There's comments at the bottom of it for us. If I hit edit here, I can turn that option off so it won't be available on the page when it's published. There's no more comment section. When I go back over to edit, I get to see that the page on the corner here has this plus sign. Besides the title, you get the ability to add something called sections. And when I go over here to add sections, there's different sections that I can create, like a 1-column section, 2-column sections, or 3-column sections, or 1/3 to the left, 1/3 to the right, or even vertical sections. There's different templates I can pick from for my sections that I can create. But the section controls the layout of the content. How you want your list to be displayed. Do you want it to be in 1 column or 2 columns? For my first section here, I'll pick it as a 1-column section. If you don't like the section you've created, you can always delete it. You can go back and add an additional column. Maybe this one you wanted 2 columns. Notice how there's a dashed line here, and the option to add 2 pieces of content show up for this section. If I change that to 3, now I get 3. When I hover over here, I get 3 options showing up. These sections have shading, where I can change the shade of the section. And I can even make it a expandable and collapsible section. So I can give it a section name. I'll make it back to 1 column. And I'll call it a 1-column section as the name. And I get to add additional sections. I'm going to add in another section here. This one's going to be 2 columns. And I'll change the background color to this one slightly different, and I'll make it a collapsible section. And I'll call it a 2 column section. And I'm going to go down to the third one here. Make it 3 columns. Make this section collapsible and change the shading to it. And I'll call this one 3 column section. Now, you can always move the order of the sections. Like if you want the 3 to be on top, you can just drag it. If I want the 2 to be down below, I can select it and I can move the section. Oh, let me move that right where I wanted it, right there. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to change it back over here. Select section 1, move it back to the top. I'm going to select section 2. Oh, 1 second. Let me do that correctly there. Go back to the top for section 1. There we go. 1, 2, 3. And let's see how this looks. I'm going to hit Save as Draft. Oh, at the current moment, it doesn't show the sections because I don't have any web parts. But when I go back to Edit here, I can see this column sections. I think it'd be best if you spend some time working on the page. See if you can add in a title. If you want to add an image, choose one of the image and title options. And add in these multiple sections, whether it's 1 column, 2 columns, or 3 columns, and format these sections to your liking. In the next portion, we're going to talk about how we can add content from the site, like an app, a document library, and display it across the page here, using something called a SharePoint web part. So pause the video, and when we come back, we'll start adding those web parts to our page. So now that we have the sections created, I think what would be best is understanding what a web part is. We have the site itself. The site has document libraries and lists and special views. Now we have to display that list, that document library, special apps that we want access to across the page. We can do that by adding a web part. Now, once you create the columns and the sections, you're going to notice that when you hover over the sections, this little contextual plus sign shows up on the columns you've created. Now, from here, you can add web parts. I'm going to add in a web part here for my 1 column section, and I'm going to click on the plus sign. Various web parts you can add. Let's just talk about some basic ones. Like if you just wanted to add some text, there's a web part for that. This web part allows me to use text editing tools in a text box. It's great when you need to share some text-based information about maybe something on the site or this page that you're directing them to. Now, this is a 1 column section, so I have to go down below this web part to talk about another one. I'm going to add it to the same section. I also have an option to add in quick links. So if there's special links that you want users to access, you can do that by adding a web part for quick links. Now, this quick links web part has different layout options, similar to my title web part. The default one is compact, but I can also have the quick links show up as a film strip or a grid or a list. It appears I've skipped one. The buttons and the tiles. And from here, you get to go ahead and add the links that you want to show up on this list. I'll do it from a link here. Now you have to include https:// on the links that you provide. It needs to make sure it's directing you to a secure link. I'm going to hit add here. All right, and I can see that the first link that I created showed up there. I can choose custom images for the link. Here, I'll change the title here. And I'll do a custom image. And I'll upload an image of the Learn It logo there. Excellent, excellent. There's my Learn It website. And I'll add in some accessibility text. A link to the Learn It website. All right. So, I can add additional links if I need to this web part. It doesn't have to just be one. Here, I add a link to the custom page. That would link to this page if they click on it, which would take them directly to the top of the page again. So, let's see a different web part now. So there's quick links, the text box. I also have one called divider. Divider is truly what it says is. It just puts a little divider in between. So if I wanted to add a divider in between my web parts, I can add the divider web part. Just a little divider. I'm going to go down over to the 2-column section. For the 2-column section, what I want to do is I'm going to add in the document library I created. I can display the documents. You might have to search. I'll pick the documents here. And then from there, you can specify what view you want to display here. So that custom view I created for the document library can be shown on this web part. And then in this next column here, I'll add in the document library again. But I'll do the site pages library. Let's just see how this looks when I hit save as draft. Here's my 1-column section that's now visible because I have some web parts. Here's my 2-column section that's now visible because I have some web parts. Let me go ahead and edit this to add in my 3rd column with my lists that I created. The list app. I created a calendar at one point. In the list app, I created a contacts at one point. But I can also go and add the list app again. I can add it twice, like for the contacts. But this time, maybe I want it to show up as a list. Like this view, I want it to show up as a list instead. All right, let's see how this looks now. We have our 1-column, our 2-column section, and our 3-column section. Now, when you're happy with the customizations you've made, you can make this page public for everybody and publish it. This will make it visible to everyone that accesses the site, and you can even put a hyperlink to it directly in the site navigation. I'm going to publish this now. I'll add the page to the navigation there. The cool thing is under site content now, you've created a new custom page in the site pages. And if I need to, I can also click on the ellipses here and I can make this page the home page instead. So sometimes when we have custom needs for the SharePoint homepage, we create blank pages and assign them as the home page. Try adding in some web parts to the page that you've added and ultimately publish it. Just take it section by section, web part by web part, and edit by edit. In this page, I currently have a section that has a text web part, quick links, document libraries, and then I have lists. Our site is looking good. We've added in some documents, customized the library, created multiple lists, ultimately added that page that has the web parts that displays the content. It reaches a point where you have to start adding the members now. SharePoint's great with permissions. If you go over to the gear icon, you get the option to access the site permissions from there. From there, you get to add members as an owner. You get to choose if you want a site owner, which has full control. You can control the site content, adjust the theme, the permission settings, the site settings, and even associate the site to a hub. I can make them a site member, which can edit and view site contents. Or I can add them as a site visitor, which gives them absolutely no control of the content in the site. I can change how the members share in the site. And there's even advanced permission settings that I can adjust from here. So there are 3 user groups that are currently created in the site by default: members, owners, and visitors. Edit and full control and read are assigned for these member groups. You can always create additional groups, and this group will be available throughout the entire site. What I can do is I'm going to call this one my custom group FK. I can choose who the owners of the group would be, who can view the group memberships, who can edit the group memberships, allow if the owners can join or leave this group. And then here I can assign the permissions for any additional groups I want to create. Like if I want to have a contribute group, a restricted view group, or an edit group, or a design group. These ones are approvers. So if I have a document library with approve and reject turned on, I can build a design view and add a few users to that document library's view. Now this site will allow me to add designers that can approve, customize, edit, view, and do everything below: edit, contribute, read, restricted view. So here's my custom group with just one member in it. And now I have my 4th group created. So I'm going to go back over to my site permissions here. And when I go over to the advanced permission settings, I can see that custom group FK is available. I can also go to document libraries if I need to. And when I go to the gear icon, I can go over to the library settings. And under more library settings, I can change the permissions for just the document library. So right now, this is telling me that this inherits permissions from the parent, the site. I can have this document library only inherit permissions on its own. Or not really inherit, just have permissions, unique permissions from the site itself on its own. I'm going to hit stop inheriting permissions here. And now this document library has unique permissions that's separate from the site. So if I wanted to remove some of these users or add some users to this group, it'd be different than the site. I'm going to go ahead and delete the unique permissions, resyncing the document library permissions with the site collection permissions. So SharePoint is very customizable in a sense that you can create custom user groups. You can get the document libraries or lists and assign the user groups to them with unique permissions. And that way you can control who has access to what across the site. I think what would be best is if you can pause the video and see if you have the ability to create some site permissions. See if you can go to your advanced permission settings and create a new user group. Assign the permission levels that you would like for the group and add the members. And then when you go over to your document library or list, see if you can go over to the library settings. And under more library settings, you have the ability to change the permissions for the document library. And then you can go ahead and stop inheriting permissions and give unique permissions for itself. Alright, and that concludes SharePoint Online Advanced. My name is Faz Kareem and I'm with LearnIt. In this session, we spent some time using the sort, filter, and search tools to help us be more efficient when locating documents across SharePoint sites. We learned about custom user views for the documents and lists that you can create and assign. Ultimately, we played around with the list for our calendars and our contacts, and we displayed that information by creating a special page, a custom page, that had multiple web parts. And this content was restricted using members and owners and unique permissions across the document libraries, lists, and the site itself.